you?
Hi, I'm doing well.
Good. Doing good.
I guess hopefully Mr. Carpenter, Dr. Carpenter gets on in time as well because we need to
Yep,
do just make sure we got a good connection check.
yep.
Mr. William, I really appreciate you doing this. I know you have a very busy schedule now. I know you were out of town yesterday and getting back in town and then agreeing to do the broadcast with us, a recording for the broadcast.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
really appreciate that.
yeah. I appreciate you even thinking of me to include me in this. I started out the morning up in Northwest Arkansas. I'm back here now, and we've got actually a meeting that starts at 5 o'clock here. I've got a couple of chamber of commerce.
Very good.
How are y'all doing?
Good,
Doing
very
great.
good.
Doing great. How are
Good.
you doing?
Good. Good.
Well, that's wonderful.
Okay.
Appreciate you all having us on.
We appreciate you being on. Okay, Mr. King, Dr. King, are we ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Just a second here. Okay. Just a second. You ready? Okay. Testing, testing, one, two, three.
Okay, you can start.
Ready? Okay, we'll start in three, two, one. You're tuned to the Lord's radio station. We are KJIW 94.5 FM in Helena, Arkansas. I am Belinda Mundy. Arkansas Land and Community Development is hosting the 44th Annual Arkansas Land and Farm Development Annual Conference and Membership Meeting, October 24th and 25th. It will be held at the Brinkley Convention Center in Brinkley, Arkansas. So, here to talk about this upcoming event is none other than the president and CEO of ALCDC, Dr. Calvin King Sr. Hello, how are you today?
How you doing, Miss Monday?
Uh, Doing good. Now, also joining in our conversation is Dr. Abraham Carpenter Jr. He's the owner and CEO of Carpenter Farms and Carpenter Medical Group in Grady, Arkansas, as well as Mr. Harvey Williams, co-founder and CEO of Delta Dirt Distillery in Helena, Arkansas. We've got some heavyweights at the mic, so let's get started. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Miss Monday.
Absolutely.
Now, Dr. King, how excited are you about this conference that is now entering 44 years?
Well, Miss Monday, I'm very excited about the conference itself. As you know, this is our annual event. It gives us an opportunity to one being transparent, to the public and what the organization has accomplished over the past 44 years, how our work continues, and the specific goals that we have in place and what the board of directors has put in place as a strategic plan to move forward to continue to deliver services that's beneficial for our constituency that we represent. So I'm excited, from that perspective, and that's what the conference itself is all about. And it also gives an opportunity to do what we call the networking and for people to have conversation among themselves, to look at things that may be being accomplished or what has been accomplished and what may be taking place within our service area and how that in itself can be beneficial to the public as a whole. One of the things that is really important about that whole process too, the conference itself, and being excited about that, and what we plan to deliver on that day is to talk about the resources, what resources are actually available, how to access those resources, and how those resources can be beneficial to our constituents and to the public as a whole. So I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited about all the presenters and the speakers that we have, the resource people that we have there, and particularly Dr. Carpenter and Mr. Williams. This is really a first for us because it was brought to our attention that we need to raise the flag and make sure those individuals that have have had the level of achievement, in dealing with, the struggle itself and moving forward, particularly when you talk about the African American community, and from an economic development perspective and from a business standpoint. So those models, it's important that those models be shared with the public, that they're more knowledgeable of it. And of course, they'll tell their own stories. We don't tell our stories enough. No, we honestly have a tendency to tell the struggle, but we don't talk about the accomplishments with the struggle and what it has taken to achieve those accomplishments in the process, how people have persevered, in their work, in their accomplishment, and the fact that it has the historical aspect of that. And for us to understand that we stand on the shoulders of others, of our foreparents. And so it'll be about that as well. And consistent with the theme, as we talk about the legacy of the inheritance of prosperity with disparity. So we're talking about, in this particular case, prosperity, multi-generational prosperity that has occurred, but not that prosperity is at a level where it needs to be, and definitely not within the context of numbers of individuals within our own community. So yes, I'm very excited. We'll have a lot to deliver on that day, and those who will be a part of that delivery are the two guests that you have here with us today.
Well, we're excited to hear their story and we can't wait. And you kind of already started. My next question was going to be about this year's theme, the legacy of the inheritance of prosperity with disparity. So can you shed just a little light on what you're trying to present at this year's conference with that theme in mind?
Well, with that theme in mind, there are a number of reports that's been out over the years, and the most recent one that's come out is the Equity Commission Found Report, and of course, it has identified a number of issues, a lot of issues as it relates to how this disparity exists. What has been the many creating factors of the disparity or the gap that exists as it relates to the minority communities, particularly the African American community, that gap or that disparity in comparison to how wealth and equity exists at a much higher level within the context of other communities, within the context of business enterprises that exist in the context of economic and growth within those areas, and the amount of equity that has been built over the years. So there's a level of disparity that exists. We will talk. We will have conversations about that as it relates to both the report and those agencies, and how those recommendations that have been made, hopefully those recommendations that have been made from the national level, from USDA, on how they plan to do a better job with delivery of equity support building for the African American community and for the underserved communities as a whole.
Okay, so now you have some dynamic speakers lined up at this year's conference. On Thursday is the Youth Conference Day. The speaker will be Dr. Odell Carr. He is the author, pastor, and social theorist from El Dorado, Arkansas. Then on Friday, the keynote speaker will be Mr. James Tillman Sr. He's the regional conservationist with USDA Natural Resources. And of course, here with us today are your morning session speakers, Dr. Abraham Carpenter Jr. and Mr. Harvey Williams, and we want to welcome them. Dr. Carpenter, we'll start with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Give us a little background about yourself and on your experience as a second generation African American farmer.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having us. A little bit of background about myself. It's my family and I. We've been in business for over 55 years. My mom and dad, they started the business with 1 acre of produce, and now it has grown to over 1,500 acres of produce. We sell to the Walmart distribution centers, not only in Arkansas, but in Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Texas. We sell to the AIG and Kroger and other distribution centers. We have over 35 family members involved in the operation. I hire about 60 people during the peak of season to help us to package and harvest the produce. And I've been in numerous trainings and meetings with Arkansas Land and Farm, the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. I've been knowing Kevin. He probably wouldn't even want me to tell you how long I've known him because it make him feel old, you know. But we were both boys. We were both boys when I first met Kevin, you know, and he's always been really helpful, always been instrumental in my family's success. You know, him and the guys from out of UAPB, Wilbur Pierre, Thomas Vaughn, Booker Clemens, Dr. O.R. Holliday, Henry English, Dr. S.J. Parker, John Clark, and there's so many more, Dr. Hazel Reed, all of those guys, along with Kevin and his organization, they've been a guiding light and been mentors in our lives, you know. But I must say, you know, that none of this success would have been possible if it was not for the hard work, dedication, and the love and support of the family. You know, my mom and dad, and like I said, they started, you know, but the foundation have always been faith, you know, and if it was not for the mercy and the grace and the favor of God, none of this would be possible. So we are completely grateful, completely humble, you know, by the favor that God has shown us, and we're really, really happy and pleased with the success that we've achieved. And I always say that, you know, I don't want to become complacent, you know, but I'm kind of tired of putting in all the hard work that I do, but I know that there's yet much work to be done. So I look
Okay.
forward to continue working with Calvin and the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff and many others to build success among Black farmers.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Williams, thank you for being here as well. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little history about your multi-generational family farm?
Yeah, sure. Let me start by saying thank you, Ms. Money, for putting together this interview, and thank Arkansas Land and Community Development Corporation for really highlighting, you know, this year's conference with some speakers, both young and those who have been farming for a number of years. He said earlier that we all stand on the giants' shoulders of our forefathers. Um, those names that Dr. Carpenter was calling out, I remember my dad calling out those names in conversation. I was a little boy, but I remember the you know, Mr. Vaughn and Miss Hansberry. You know, there were some women a part of that farm movement too. So my story here, I did like many in the Delta. I farmed with my dad until I got old enough to go to college and move away. So I did move away and was away for over 20 years, 25 years, and I came back. But our history and our legacy is rooted in my great grandfather's farming this land here in Phillips County, and my dad, my granddad, you know, farming that same land, both as sharecroppers, and my granddad just having, I don't know, the courage and the faith of God to be able to buy that farm out of sharecropping in 1949. the more I think about that now, that's just a testament of His will and God's grace to allow that to happen, right? And then my dad started farming that farm after my granddad, and he had to transition the farm from traditional row crops to mostly a vegetable farm operation. He, wasn't a lot of acres. I mean, my granddad started with 86 acres, so it wasn't a lot. So if my dad was going to continue to farm, he either needed to figure out how to get big enough to sustain himself in row cropping or diversify himself so that small farm could sustain his family. And he did. And I moved back to this area and wanted to do something with our farm. And I started this distillery. My wife and I started this distillery where we are using crops that we grow on this farm to build a business and create products that now have become worldwide. I mean, we're selling now across the United States, of course, across Arkansas, but we are working on some plans to go beyond even the borders of this country. So I am really fortunate and blessed to be able to tell our story, and I'm grateful to you guys for allowing me to share it.
So now tell me, what is your viewpoint and experience with USDA as a resource?
Well, we having an honest conversation here. My experience with USDA has not been direct. It's been through my dad's farming operation, and that it has been somewhat complex because they have been helpful in many ways, but in some ways, I've heard my dad talk to me directly and overhear him talking stories about how he would be delayed in his loans and those type things. But I believe that a lot of those things have been rectified, that things are now improving for Black farmers working with USDA. I know my brother has worked for USDA for over 20 years. I know a lot of people I went to high school and college with works for USDA. So I know it's an organization that is there to help all farmers, particularly Black farmers that are trying to make it in farming. So my relationship with them has not been direct, but I have seen it be helpful to Black farmers. I just know that it has not been a perfect organization.
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Carpenter, how has your family farm benefited from the USDA resources?
Well, I first want to say that Mr. Williams' family, his mom and dad and his whole family, I've known them forever. His dad and I were like brothers, and they're really, really good people. So I know that he's really proud of you, brother. Keep up the good work. But my family and I, we've had our differences and our bout with USDA in earlier years. But I can honestly say that in most recent years, that we have received excellent service from most of the USDA employees. They have kept my family and I informed of the USDA programs that exist and have helped to make them available for our benefit. The majority of the employees from NRCS now and FSA have been very helpful, and they provided a lot of great services to us. But it took some work. In the earlier days, it was a mess, but I have to give credit where credit is due. Right now, they do an excellent job with and then just go on to say and tell you that it's the people. You have the programs and the USDA companies and all, but it's the people that you have servicing out here that will make or break these programs or provide the service and the outreach that everyone needs.
Okay. My next question is, history shows that there has been a major decline of Black farmers since 1910. And either one of you gentlemen can chime in. What do you see as being the major contributing factor that shows the success for your multi-generational family farms, survival and prosperity?
Well,
Go ahead, Mr. Carpenter.
well, I know that, it's going to be vital that USDA and other agencies, that USDA partner with other agencies such as Arkansas Land and Farm and UAPB to continue to provide the outreach for the minority farmers and the small businesses. USDA partnering with agencies such as Calvin's organization, Arkansas Land and Farm, UAPB, that can help bridge the gap for equity and disparity by making sure all farmers have knowledge and access to all of the programs, and it can even help educate them on how to participate and even provide. I know Calvin and them have always helped to provide technical assistance, and that's what farmers need. You know, most farmers, they're not young people. It's a lot of young people trying to get into farming now, but most of the farmers are older people, and they're afraid of computers. They're afraid of change, and they just need some help. And I'm really proud of Calvin and his organization because they have provided so much technical assistance for the farmers, and they enabled a lot of farmers to stay in business. So I'm truly grateful for that organization. And it just helps level the playing field when you have those resources available to you and you have knowledge and access to them.
So, Mr. Williams, what has helped your family farm to survive all these years?
Well, I mentioned it a little bit earlier when I told you about my dad diversifying the farm. It started out as strictly traditional row crop farming, and he converted that to a vegetable farming operation, which required a different level of technical expertise and financial backing to support that. So, in terms of USDA and the agencies supporting, I think they have to be versatile enough, and looks like they are working to be versatile enough to handle the large, 1,000-acre row crop farming guys, but also the guy who's farming 58 acres of, in my dad's case, 80 acres of squash, or 100 acres of sweet potatoes, or 50 acres of watermelons. So I think if farming, especially in the Black community, who may not have 1,000 acres, let's say they only have 20 acres to work with, you can still farm with 20 acres and you can still make it. You may have to choose to diversify that and hit other markets. You may have to have things that may challenge you with those small acres, or with growing those peppers. But those peppers could give you good margins. Those peppers could have a good outlet, and it could take care of your family. But you're going to need some help. You're going to need both financial help, and you're going to need some technical assistance on figuring out how to do that. I'm having that same challenge with sweet potatoes. I have now recently just started working with USDA and the Farm Services Agency. I've got some cows. They're helping me figure out how I manage this cattle herd that I've got. So I just think USDA and these agencies that ALCDC they're connecting farmers to the services that they need, given whatever it is that they're doing on their both small and large farms.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Dr. King, there are so many issues that can be addressed that are so relevant. But let's talk about the Equity Commission final report that you alluded to earlier, which was designed to address disparities in underserved communities. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. But well,
okay.
The report itself, or the final report, and those aspects of it that I've been able to do some review on and look at certain recommendations that have been made by the report itself. I don't think that the findings are anything that's new. As a whole, if anything, there may have been findings that had some add-on. In other words, there was other connectivity to what some of the previous findings were that may have not been clearly identified, and the effects of what maybe even those barriers were that existed in the past, and the effects of those barriers to where we are right now, why this disparity does exist. So when you go back to the the USDA Civil Rights Report, the Jackson Lewis Report, and of course now the Equity Commission's report. So let's do it this way. If we look at history and say 1910 coming forward, 1910, there was roughly some 15 million African American farmers, in the U.S. That population has declined to roughly some say 4 million, some say 2+ million farm acres. 15 million acres, to roughly some 4 million acres or 2 million acres. Whichever number comes out, it definitely will show a major gap, a disparity as it relates to land ownership in the country now by African American. If you look at it from where it was in 1910, that's one point of gap that exists when you look at the loss. What existed where we are right now. And of course, we all know that real estate and real property is one means or ways by which and how people have built wealth over the years, by the equity that is built within the context of ownership of real estate. History shows that the same thing is shown even today, from that perspective. So when you look at the findings today, the findings in the past, you also, as Mr. Williams gave reference to, things have improved over the years, and Dr. Carpenter is saying the same thing, where we are now versus, where we were. Well, one of the factors that existed years ago, and you will hear some of the older population speak to it, and of course you're talking about me too when you say that, is Mr. Carpenter made reference to Mr. Williams. I knew Dr. Carpenter's father and Mr. Williams' father as well. So you know where that puts me, right, in the process. But the point is, one of the major contributing factors, part of the contributing factors, was built to build fear. The fear building factor was a contributing factor for the African American that, okay, you cannot get this in an equal manner as to what another segment of the population get, or you're not equally as entitled in the process. Now, if you deal with that repeated process over and over again, and then you demonstrate, you establish the fear, and then you demonstrate because you don't get access to it. And that has led into, as part of the history of what has been shown in discrimination. As I say, discrimination, but you got the fear factor with the basis of these activities that are taking place and may not really even, calling it discrimination during that time and era and time period, but being transferred from one generation to the other. So not calling discrimination, but the fear factor, and to the extent that the fear existed, we, in certain cases, didn't realize what was really occurring within the context of the system itself. Okay, so that's a part of the history, get us to where we are, where the disparities are, how they exist, and the effect of those barriers and the effect of those type of practices, as Dr. Carpenter gave reference to also, what the practices are better, but, it has improved. But now, how does, based on the report itself, with those recommendations, how do you correct that? How do you correct the situation and what has occurred in the past? And based on the past and what has occurred, you find yourself where if you don't do the added value, if you don't do things to appreciate, to create more value within the context of real property itself. And the same thing when you start to talk about, from a business enterprise, from an agricultural perspective, from an added value standpoint, how do you create more of an equal playing field now? Here's where we are now. Here's what the struggle has meant. Here's how we've persevered in this whole process, and we are where we are now, but there's still a gap that exists. There is an equity gap that exists. They have recognized that, and I am convinced, and will continue to be our advocacy work, that in order to deal with a lot of the disparity, I won't say a lot of, to start to address the disparity, then we have to, one, we know we recognize it. That's one step. The commission report recognize it. And based on those recommendations, then we have to deal with recognizing a recognition and then institutionalizing a process by way of both legislation and program initiatives that deals with bridging the gap and building equity within these business enterprises to move them to a level playing field with those who have received the benefit of this type of support over the years as a part of history when we did not have, Mr. Williams' grandfather didn't have that type of access and an opportunity to build the equal wealth and equity within the context of the farming operation, not even to expand because you didn't have equal access to the capital in order to do that, okay, be it expanded the operation. That was a theory by USDA Secretary. This was in the 70s, I think, coming in. I don't know exactly which administration it was on, and I won't get into that anyway because it's not political. We're talking about institutionalizing the process to correct the situation. But the theory from the USDA was to get big or get out. Get big or get out. Now, that was the theory, and I won't call the name of the secretary, and both these guys are considerably younger than me, so I'm just telling you, they probably wouldn't remember this anyway, but that was the theory, get big or get out. As a result of that, then farming operations started to grow. You say 40 acres, 50 acres, 100 acres, 200 acres, that's the size of a farming operation. Then it went to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 acres. Now, in order for you to grow from a 40 acre, 60 acre, 100 acre farm to a 1,000 acre, 2,000 acre farm, you had to have equal access to the financing to deal with expanding your operation by either buying or leasing more land. So without having that equal access, that means you don't have equally opportunity to deal with that growth and to build more equity within the context of your farming operation, including other type of support resources that automatically build equity and improving land in a certain way. That's used to be ASCS, Natural Resource Conservation Services. Then it was Farmers Home Administration, now it's Farm Service Agency. The financing institution on one side, the program service delivery institution on the other side, where there was an infusion of capital for putting in irrigation systems, land leveling, other conservation practices as relates to the land. Then on the other side was the financing to deal with acquisition of land by way of purchases, as well as operating capital for those operations. So all of this is within the context of the report. These are finding how do we rectify it and moving forward. One way to rectify it is for people to be able to see these are individuals that by way of perseverance from one generation to the next generation, they're here. As the song says, there was a religious song that say, still here. Okay, so they're still here. Another generation is still here. Third generation in one case, second generation in the other case. So how do we now make sure that this does not continue to be an institutionalized type of situation of the not inability, but the lack of support to further build the equity for the existing business enterprises, as well as to give more opportunity for those who want to come in as new beginning farmers, be if you want to be a small farmer, mid-sized farmer, or a large farmer. Equal access to the resources and equity type of support for those individuals to address this issue of the disparity of the gap that does exist as far as prosperity itself is concerned and equality itself within the context of a multi-billion-dollar business enterprise. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, I know a lot of
and some. So as we begin to wrap up, Dr. King, would you tell us what people can expect from the conference, and then also give how people can register for the conference on October 25th?
Well, one of the things they can expect a lot more of what they've heard here from these two individuals that I see as being both mentors and supporters, and as I say, the actual flagships of what can be and what it has taken for them to achieve and to be where they are now. They realize and understand the shoulder that they stand on, and they definitely an example for that next generation of beginning from. So can expect more of this and their real stories, and also understanding the barriers and those things that first, second, third generation have to overcome for them to have the opportunity to be where they are now. That's one. The other thing is they can expect workshops where we'll have resource individuals there from USDA to talk about the programs that they have available, how that program service delivery will be taking place as we move forward into 2025, a new farm bill that should be coming online, I'm assuming pretty soon, and hopefully what we will see that will come out of that commission report that will go into legislation and a part of the bill. But those agencies will be there. We'll have 3 different workshops. 1 and 2 workshops will be dealing with farm programs, access to financing, access to equity building capital by way of USDA itself, and the equity building capital from the Natural Resource Conservation Services, flexibility in financing opportunities as a new program now with Farm Service Agency. You hear more about that. It's just come online. It's not the same traditional way that it used to be. So we'll be talking about that. We'll talk about air property and how to address the issues of air property as a barrier on one hand, and 2, as a situation that can be very detrimental in cases where where those individuals have inherited land and having to understand or should understand the goal to retain that land. We'll also talk about housing in the same way. We'll talk about housing as well as economic development type of financing both from what I call it equity or grant perspective, those type of resources for business enterprises, such as the one you're talking to here today, and even others that exist, small businesses and larger businesses, can access those resources in rural areas to deal with expanding those businesses, creating new jobs in the area as a part of that business enterprise. So we will have a work session on that. We'll talk about housing grants and housing loans and how to access those programs as well, and the technical systems that we provide in all of these areas as an organization. So all of that is what people can expect to get from the conference, along with a dynamic keynote speaker, Mr. James Tillman, who is the regional conservationist, including Arkansas being a part of his area that he's over. He's originally from Phillips County. He's from Phillips County, eastern Arkansas. And I like to say that a lot. Okay, he's from eastern Arkansas. I'm from Lee County, joining there, but he will have a lot to say and also deliver what people can be expecting, both what they're doing now and what their journey is to create change in addressing this disparity that exists, that has been inherited within the context of our community as a whole. So that, and I know I'd be saying, Miss Money, you're used to me now. I know I can go on in the whole process, but those are some of the things that they can expect, and a lot more. But everything that will be a part of our conference is about bringing about positive change. We the people. That's what it's about.
And how can people register?
Okay, calling for registration. In order, you can pre-register, and we encourage everyone to pre-register for the conference. You can call our main office at 870-734-1140 for pre-registration. That's our Brentley Fargo office. Or they can call our Forest City office registration And the Forest City number is 870-594-7000. That's the Forest City office. So they can call in for pre-registration at either one of those numbers for the conference event. They can also pre-register on the website, and the website number is ALCDC.org, and that's ALCDC.org for pre-registration online. And again, I can guarantee, the listening audience and those who hopefully will be able to attend. And I know you all cover Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. I'm sorry, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. So I want you all to know this is not just an Arkansas event. So we encourage participation, and we work in those areas as well. We encourage participation from Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. And I guarantee you, when you come, you will leave with something that's going to be very beneficial for you based on where you are in your present position and where you want to be in your future position.
Thank you so much, Dr. King, for all of that information. And again, for pre-registration, they are encouraging you to register and register early on the website, arlcdc.org. That's arlcdc.org. Or you can call 870-734-1140 or 870-594-7000. We thank you guys so much for just taking the time to talk to us and to talk about this upcoming conference. Dr. Carpenter, it's a pleasure to meet you. It was fascinating reading the history of your family and your beginnings. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you in person.
All right, thank you. And Mr.
Okay.
Williams, I was at a broadcasters convention in Hot Springs this past weekend and was speaking with the vice president of ABC TV in Jonesboro, Arkansas. When I told him I was from Helena, he said, I have been trying to get to Helena to get to Delta Distillery. So thank you for helping to put Helena back on the map again. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
And Dr. King, as usual, words cannot express our appreciation to you for your commitment to our Black farmers and to small businesses, for being a voice and an advocate for the underserved population and communities. Thank you so much for the work that you do.
Thank you, Ms. Bonnie. And we specifically, in all appreciation that could be offered, we really appreciate the partnership that we've had, with 94.5 over the years, and we look forward to a continuation of that and a lot more work together.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right.